Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Word of the Day podcast, where useful words are pleasantly explained. My name is Jamie Silva, I am your host, and in this episode, we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of a highly produced, carefully polished, and some might even say scripted monologue or conversation, what you're about to hear is an actual conversation between myself and our guest, Ginny, about the word ingratiate. The material overlaps somewhat with the official episode on Ingratiate, but there's a lot of new stuff in here too. Bonus material, if you will. We hope you enjoy. Also, incidentally, because this is as good a place as any to mention it, Ginny and I did another little project of sorts together a couple years ago, where we rewrote the ending of a scene from the film La La Land, and then dubbed our own voices over it, using our own revised script for the second half of that scene. Without giving too much away, and without getting into film critic territory, because I'm certainly not that, we tried to delve into, and spoiler alert here, the idea was to show that the disagreements and different life paths that ultimately drove the main characters, Mia and Sebastian, apart were actually pretty minor, and their separation could probably have been easily avoided with just a modest dose of healthy, open communication. Anyway, so I'm going to post that video to the show Facebook page, and you can also just look it up on YouTube, where it appears under the title, La La Land Argument Scene Reimagined. Alrighty, without any further ado, let's move on to the main event, Ingratiate, a conversation. My name is Jamie Silva, I'm your host, and we've got a really fantastic word to talk to you about today. It is both useful, and we hope to pleasantly explain it. And I say we because we have in the studio today, making her second appearance on the program, Ginny Wood. Ginny, thank you so much for being here.
You know I'm just here for the swag.
That's right. Well, it depends how you do. Okay, so today's word, just to briefly introduce you folks to it, this is the verb ingratiate. Typically, you see it in conjunction with words like yourself, himself, oneself, themselves. So it'll be ingratiate oneself, ingratiate yourself, etc. In my view, my definition of ingratiate, I would say it means to get on someone's good side by being especially nice to them, right? So by way of example, right, let's say a family has moved in next door to you, and you knock on their door one morning, and you brought to them a plate of fresh baked cookies, and you're warmly welcoming them to the neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that attempt to get your neighbor to like you by being super nice to them, that is ingratiation. And ingratiation, just for the record, that is merely the noun form of the verb ingratiate.
Okay. So why would you say that people should use this word? Why do you think it's useful?
One of the main criteria that I use for evaluating whether a word is useful, whether a word has the chops, has what it takes, Jenny, to make it on this program.
Yeah.
In order to express the concept of ingratiate, it would take you more words, and those words would not be as precise.
There you go.
And we're all about saving you time. We are all so busy. Modern life. It rushes by. Time is finite. We just want to make sure you use your limited days upon the earth wisely. We're going to cut that.
So, I mean, one, there's a couple thoughts that this sparks for me. One is all of these phrases are fairly negative in my mind. These ideas are getting
pejorative.
Yeah, they're pejorative. So I would like to talk about how much ingratiate falls in that camp. Because, another online search, a Wikipedia definition, defined ingratiate. Ingratiation is a psychological technique in which an individual attempts to influence another person by becoming more likable to their target. Target? Once you say manipulation and target, I'm like, whoa.
Sure.
I'm wondering, as our listeners are trying to use this word, how should they be considering the connotations here? Does this word have inherently negative connotations?
So here's the way I think of this, and this is probably going to be a more wishy-washy answer than you want, but hey, it's language. Sometimes it is that way. It depends. And so what does it depend on? It depends on the context in which you are saying it. It depends a little bit on the tone that you say it in, and particularly your intent.
When could we use
Absolutely.
this?
So one of the reasons I wrote this word, one of the reasons that I selected this word for an episode and was thinking about it recently enough to put it together is that I recently moved into a new house. I have housemates. The housemates were there before me. One wishes to make a good impression. That's not because I, am trying to get something out of them. I simply want to get along.
Yeah.
Now, you can argue, and this is fine. I have an incentive to get along. Might I say, look, I'm a nice person. I would try to be nice anyway. Fine, maybe. But there's a difference between like being nice in general and like actually thinking about it.
Okay.
Actually like having it be top of mind and like monitoring your behavior to make sure you are not deviating from the high standard of niceness to which you aspire. So how might that manifest itself again? So would I be, let's say, especially assiduous, careful about...
Thank you.
Sorry, sidebar. One of the rules that we have on the show is that you do not use complicated words to explain simple words. Why would you do that to people? So I might be more mindful and careful of like, hey, if I make dinner, I have some dishes. I do not leave those dishes for the next morning. I have not been warned about this. I don't know that they care about that. Right. But it is something that I have tried to do. Now at this point, I can't air this episode for several months, lest my behavior seem more calculating with respect to dishes or things of that nature. I'll just have to move out. But that's what I'm talking about, right? So there's nothing you would agree. Like, are they my target? Like, I guess in a broad sense, they're who I have in mind. Is it a question of manipulation? You'd have to get kind of philosophical and expand your definition there, I think.
Yeah, I think you're selling me on the idea that there's definitely a concept of like intentionally trying to get off on the right foot with your new housemates without like this kind of a method of social manipulation in which you, but would you use the word ingratiating? Would you say I'm ingratiating myself to my housemates?
100%.
But okay.
I mean, you wouldn't say that to them.
You wouldn't say that to them. Okay,
No.
so that's interesting. So what kind of position?
I mean, fine. You might, like, if you're being funny.
I agree. It would have to be kind of facetious.
And like sort of self-deprecating a little bit.
Totally. And that, I think, raises another question, which is like, what kind of relationship does ingratiation imply between, the person ingratiating themselves and the person they are ingratiating themselves to? When I talk about like kissing up to someone, it's like because they have something that I want. You know what I mean? So that places them in some sort of higher position.
There's a couple things that I think we can say about the implied relationship between the ingratiator, I like the sound of it, and the ingratiatee.
Okay.
Scenario A, they're equals who are trying to get to know each other. Fairly simple. We've talked about it.
Right.
Scenario B, hierarchy.
Yeah.
This is where as with any case, manipulation comes in.
Okay.
Where ingratiation becomes a tool to get something from or get something out of someone or to achieve some other end that's unrelated to that person, that's unrelated to getting along with them, to achieve some other end that you need to be on their good side for. I was going to break hierarchy down, I think, a little bit between I think a more benign angle and I think a less benign angle. So we use the extreme example, and I think not extreme in the sense of it's unheard of, it's just less common, of like person is in charge or small group of people is in charge. You need them for something. They are a tool. Okay. Another is it's a hierarchy and you want to get along with the people at the top of the hierarchy, but it's not
cut and dried.
It's not as cut and dried and it's not as ruthless. I think it doesn't have to come at the expense of other people. So here I may as well just say the example I'm thinking of in a work setting, right? Do you want to get along with your boss? Yes. Is there something in it for you? Heck yes. Right?
Yeah.
You want a bigger bonus. You want a cool, whatever your incentives are. It certainly does not help if your boss does not like you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the same way, you could flip it around and say, well, gosh, like at least any boss, worth their salt will want to ingratiate themselves to their employees, lest those employees be, not like them and then be difficult to work with or lazy or just be not motivated.
So it's sort of this mutual thing.
Right. So you have an incentive and you're trying to get something out of it. But I think part of what sort of makes it okay, if one can say this, is the majoritarian, is the general understanding.
Is majoritarian too fancy?
Yes.
Rein it in, Jamie. Rein it in.
That's what you're here for. So what I'm saying is everyone does it. No one goes into their job being like, look, I'm trying to be nice to my manager because I'm nice to everybody. And I want to get along.
Right.
I want to be friends. No, you don't. But you want to have an excellent working relationship with them.
And you do that by ingratiating yourself to them.
Right. And that's quote unquote, I'm using my finger quotes. You can't see because this is not a video podcast. Quote unquote, manipulative, I think you could argue in some broad definitions of it. And you have a direct monetary incentive.
Totally, yeah.
And yet, like, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. The farthest I can imagine myself going with it is to, openly talk about a third party and say that I'm ingratiating myself to them. Not necessarily negative towards me or towards them if I'm like saying it to someone else, but it would be too awkward to say it to them directly.
Don't use it around people that you are trying to ingratiate yourself with.
Right. It's like
Keep it to yourself.
It's something to be used more as like external commentary and less like in conversation. Like I would
it can be in conversation with people that are not involved. Third parties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, okay, so sorry, one more thing there is that just because you do not want to say ingratiate in the setting or in the company of the person or people you're trying to ingratiate yourself doesn't mean it's bad if they know you're trying to do it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the rules. Let's bring it back to the work situation.
Yeah.
You get a new manager. The manager brings in donuts first day. They're trying to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty obvious.
It's pretty obvious, and it's okay. And it's both sides are aware that ingratiation is happening.
Yeah.
And that is okay. That is the social norm. And this.
So you're saying you'd be totally comfortable commenting afterwards, oh, they were trying to ingratiate themselves to us, and that would not at all be negative toward
who?
To like, okay, so to someone on your team. I would feel like if you say this, she was trying to ingratiate herself to us, that would be sort of like inherently negative towards them and imply insincerity. I feel like ingratiation is like this unspoken social pattern that we do and we talk about, and or we do it and it's okay, but it's kind of not okay once you say it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. You bring it out into the light, and then people aren't as excited about it.
And I think there are tons of things like that. Ingratiation, folks, is for trusted audiences only. You gotta trust those ears.
I think that's just fair. I think that's just accurate.
Here's another question I have.
Okay.
But the word itself, ingratiate, is that describing that you did it, or is it describing that you're trying?
Usually it refers to the attempt, in my experience.
Okay.
So-and-so was trying to ingratiate themselves with this person.
I agree.
I think possibly because the process is more interesting than the conclusion.
True.
For the purpose of storytelling or for the purposes of, just seeing how it's done.
Yeah. You said, you've just met someone and you're trying to ingratiate yourself to them.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, does that always have to be the case? Because, so here the synonym I would say comes in handy. Get in the good graces of. You definitely can try to get back in the good graces of someone whose good graces you have fallen out of. Let's talk about that.
Okay. And is that ingratiation? Right. In short.
Is that ingratiation? Can you use it can you re-ingratiate yourself, since we're taking liberties with the word? Can you re-ingratiate yourself with someone you know already? And you've offended them, they're real mad, you're trying to win them back. Yeah. I feel like you can. What do you think?
What do you say to that person? You say, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. I want to start again.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You are trying to reframe your relationship as let's start now.
Exactly.
Ingratiation is back on the table because once again, it is new. You are saying it is new, so I get to, right? This is why, and I have brought you these donuts, whatever.
That's very interesting.
You are trying to bring it back to the beginning, the little reset button approach.
So you're saying that in most of these scenarios, you're actually trying to restart anyway. And so in a way, it's as if you're trying to recreate the first impression. But what about really long-term relationships, like family? Couldn't you still try to re-ingratiate yourself?
Yeah, that's where I'm less comfortable with it.
Would you say then just use a different word?
Yeah,
is this too
honestly,
good stuff? Honestly, one of my takeaways from this conversation is this word is dicey.
Dicey, what do you mean?
With exceptions, this word has negative connotations. Bottom line, folks, calling someone ingratiating will not ingratiate yourself to them. Mic drop.
I'm not knocking over the mic if that's what you want. But good. Closing thoughts.
If I could leave you with one thought,
okay,
it would be that this word generally implies that you are trying to get in someone's good graces with a motive.
Yeah. Since you had a closing thought, that means I have to have a closing thought.
What is your closing thought?
Sure. That this word is fun and interesting, and you should use it. With
okay.
all of the caveats and the cautions pertaining thereto.
Still a fan.
Yes. Okay, good. That will do it for us, folks. a delightful conversation. Jenny, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for
having me.
Yes, indeed. We will return after the regularly scheduled interval with more episodes, more excellent words. In the meantime, thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And until then, do, of course, have a great